How does the symbol of the veil reveal Du Bois' feelings about his role in American society? In this lesson, you will learn how to analyze symbols by connecting figurative language with a text meaning. So let's review. We've already read The Souls of Black Folk, chapter 1 of our spiritual strivings, at least once, but this time when we read, we're going to be looking at symbols. Now, symbols are used by authors to show readers an abstract idea. They use something concrete, like this owl. We can see the owl, we can hear the owl, we can touch the owl, and the seriousness of his face often reminds us of wisdom, which is something abstract. So the author is using something we can see to help us visualize something that we can't see. And we know that when an author uses an image or a word more than once, that it's going to be pretty important to the text, as is the case with a veil here. Now, a mistake some readers make is just to think that the author just placed things in the text without reason, but in literature, the author is going to put everything in there for a purpose. So let's think about what we know about a veil. A veil is a piece of cloth that covers the bride's face, and it's used to separate the bride from her groom. So the veil can be separating the bride from the groom. But also know in many religions and cultures, such as the religion of Islam, that women wear a covering on their heads, which is sometimes called a veil, and that in the Catholic religion, as part of the habit, the nun wears a veil, which is the piece that frames her face. And they wear these to conceal their hair. So a veil can be used to separate and to conceal. So in this lesson, we're going to highlight places where the author uses a particular word or image, and then we're going to rewrite each section in our own words. And finally, we're going to ask, how does the image or word connect with the meaning of the text? So when we look at this section, this question, how does the symbol of the veil reveal Du Bois' feelings about his role in American society? I know that when I go back and look at the text, I'm going to be looking for places where they use the word veil. So here in this passage, I see shut out from their world by a vast veil. Then a little bit later on in the text, I see the word veil again. So here darkly as through a veil. So now that I've found some examples of where veil is used in the text, I want to go back to those examples and reread them and see if I can figure out what the author's trying to tell me here. So this particular section, you'll remember, takes place when he was at school and was shunned by the girl. So then it dawned upon me with a certain suddenness that I was different from the others, or like mayhap in heart and life and longing, but shut out from their world by a vast veil. So I need to ask myself, what does this mean? What is he trying to tell me here? And I get that, do I realize that he was different than the white children? And that he felt separated from their world. So I'll go back and verify my answers. It says in here, was different from the others, and also felt shut out from the world by that veil. Let's look at the next section. It changed the child of emancipation to youth with dawning self-consciousness, self-realization, self-respect. In these somber forests of his strivings, his own soul rose before him, and he saw himself darkly as through a veil. And yet he saw in himself some faint revelation of his power, of his mission. He began to have a dim feeling that to attain his place in the world he must be himself and not another. Again, after I read, I'm just thinking to myself, okay, what does this mean? How did he see himself darkly as through a veil, but yet he saw himself in himself a faint revelation of his power? So say after emancipation, African Americans began to gain a sense of self. But then they saw themselves as whites saw them. The veil kept African Americans from seeing themselves as they were, powerful. So I know it happened after emancipation or after freedom, because it says the child of emancipation, and that he had this sense of self because of these words. But then he saw himself darkly through a veil. He couldn't see himself as he really was, which was a powerful individual, worthy individual. So now that I have my notes together, I ask, how does the veil connect with the meaning of each section? Right, so I have my two notes here, and then I'm going to go back and remember what I said that I knew about a veil. A veil separates and it conceals. So see here, he was saying that the veil separated him from the world, and here that it concealed what his true self worth was, or who his true self was. So just kind of think about those examples and think about what I'm going to put and come up with that. Dubois used the symbol of the veil to show how African Americans felt separated from American society, seeing themselves only as whites viewed them, and that this separation prevented them from fully participating in American society. In this lesson, you have learned to highlight places where the author uses a particular word or image, and then rewrite each section in your own words. And finally, to ask, how does the image or word connect with the meaning of the text? In this lesson, you have learned how to analyze symbols by connecting figurative language with a text meaning.